one of Hollywood's most enigmatic stars, a man who's captivated audiences with his chameleon-like performances and weathered storms both on and off the screen, steps onto a late-night talk show stage, expecting a friendly chat. Instead, he's met with pointed jabs and a host who thinks he can push a legend to the edge for laughs. What you're about to hear is the story of how Johnny Depp, the iconic actor behind Captain Jack Sparrow and Edward Scissorhands, clashed with Jimmy Fallon on The Tonight Show, in a confrontation that left the audience stunned, the internet buzzing, and Fallon scrambling to pick up the pieces. This wasn't just an interview gone wrong. This was a masterclass in standing your ground with grace and fire. By the end of this story, you'll understand why Johnny Depp stormed off that stage with his head held high, leaving behind a moment that redefined him and exposed his host. Buckle up because this one gets heated. Make sure to subscribe and drop a comment below because trust me, this story is one for the ages. The stage was set on a vibrant evening in New York City, the iconic Studio 6B at 30 Rockefeller Plaza, alive with energy. The audience, a mix of Johnny Depp superfans, late-night TV regulars, and curious tourists filled the seats, their excitement palpable. They were there to see Johnny Depp, a man whose name conjures images of swashbuckling pirates, quirky outsiders, and a career that spanned over 4 decades of unforgettable roles. At 62, Depp was promoting his latest project, a gritty indie film called Shadows of Truth, a deeply personal drama about redemption and resilience that had critics raving and Oscar whispers already circulating. The crowd erupted in cheers as Depp walked out, his trademark fedora tilted just so, his smile warm but guarded, a hint of his rock star swagger in every step. He waved, flashed a peace sign, and settled into the guest chair, ready to share stories from a life lived on his own terms. Jimmy Fallon, the host known for his infectious laugh and playful charm, greeted Depp with a grin that seemed genuine, at first. Excited. "Johnny Depp, everybody," Fallon announced, prompting another wave of applause. "Welcome to The Tonight Show, Johnny. Man, it's so cool to have you here." Depp nodded graciously, his eyes crinkling with that familiar charm, a mix of mischief and sincerity. But as the cheers faded, the mood shifted subtly. Fallon leaned forward, his smile taking on a sharper edge. Probing. "So, Johnny," he began, his tone light but with an undercurrent of something else. "This new movie, Shadows of Truth, it's pretty heavy stuff, right? Redemption, second chances. Feels like you're trying to tell us something personal here, huh?" The audience chuckled softly, but there was an edge to the question, a hint of probing that felt out of place. Depp's smile didn't waver, but his eyes narrowed slightly. "Well, Jimmy," he said, his voice smooth and measured, "every role I take has a piece of me in it. This film's about finding your way back, about truth and resilience. It's a story I think a lot of people can relate to, including me." His response was thoughtful, inviting the audience into his world, but Fallon seemed to have other plans. Yeah, resilience. Got it," Fallon said, waving his hand dismissively, his grin widening. "But let's be honest, Johnny. You've had a pretty wild ride lately, right? Court cases, headlines, all that drama. This movie feels like you're trying to, I don't know, rehab your image or something? Is that the deal?" The audience gasped softly, the air in the studio shifting. The question wasn't just personal. It was a direct jab at Depp's highly publicized legal battles, a topic most hosts would tread carefully around. Depp's posture stiffened, but he kept his composure, his voice steady. "Jimmy, I don't make films to rehab anything," he said, a hint of steel beneath his calm tone. "I make films to tell stories, to explore human experiences. Not Shadows of Truth is about redemption. Shadows of Truth, Dampatini Bannels of the Down, and he ends its second down essential down song. Though clean before both, please will dills the mujorals. Shadows of Truth is about redemption, sure, but it's not about me begging for approval. It's about what I believe in, art, truth, and moving forward." The audience applauded, their support clear, but Fallon pressed on, undeterred. Sure, art, truth," Fallon said, his tone now tinged with condescension. But come on, Johnny. You're 62. You've been in the game forever. Pirates, Mad Hatters, all that quirky stuff. Don't you ever think, maybe it's time to slow down, let the new kids take over? The audience shifted uncomfortably, some murmuring in disbelief. The question was ageist, dismissive, implying Depp's best days were behind him, that his eclectic career was somehow outdated. Depp tilted his head, his eyes glinting with a mix of amusement and defiance. "Slow down?" he said, a wry smile tugging at his lips. "Jimmy, I've been doing this since I was a teenager. I've played everything from rebels to pirates to real-life heroes. I'm still here because I love it. Creating, collaborating, telling stories. Age doesn't stop that. Passion does, and I've got plenty left." The crowd cheered, but Fallon wasn't ready to let it go. Okay, passion," Fallon said, leaning back with a smirk. "But that whole Captain Jack Sparrow thing, you're still leaning on it, right? I mean, the fedora, the rings, the rock star vibe. Some people say it's less Johnny Depp now and more Johnny playing Johnny. What do you say to that?" The studio went quiet, the accusation landing plus hiss. It wasn't just about his style. It was an attack on his authenticity, suggesting he'd become a caricature of himself. Depp's jaw tightened, and for the first time, the warmth in his eyes began to cool. "Playing Johnny?" he repeated, his voice low but sharp. "Jimmy, everything I do, every role, every look, every choice is me. I've spent my life building characters, taking risks, being true to who I am. If people see that as a vibe, that's their lens, not my truth." The audience applauded again, louder now, but Fallon doubled down. "Oh, come on, Johnny, don't get all serious on me," Fallon said, rolling his eyes theatrically for the cameras. "I'm just saying the whole eccentric thing, the scarves, the tattoos, it's your brand, but it's also predictable. When's the last time you did something that really shocked people? Something that wasn't just, more of the same?" The words hung in the air, the tension palpable. The audience was silent, the band frozen, the stagehands exchanging uneasy glances. This wasn't the playful, game-heavy Tonight Show they knew. This was personal, and it was getting ugly. Depp leaned forward, his hands resting on his knees, his eyes locked on Fallon's. "You want to talk about shocking, Jimmy?" he said, his voice steady but laced with fire. "I shocked people when I turned a theme park ride into a billion-dollar franchise with Pirates of the Caribbean. I shocked people when I played a real-life gangster in Black Mass. I shocked people when I kept showing up, kept creating, despite everything the world threw at me. My career's been about defying expectations. So forgive me if I don't see predictable the way you do." The audience roared, some standing in their seats, but Fallon wasn't backing off. "Okay, Johnny, relax," he said, his tone now dripping with condescension. "I'm just asking what people are thinking. You've had a tough few years, lawsuits, tabloids, all that noise. Don't you think some of this, the indie film, the memoir vibes, is you trying to prove something? Like, hey, I'm still relevant?" The audience gasped, the accusation so blatant it sucked the air out of the room. Even the Roots, Fallon's house band, stayed silent, their usual musical cues nowhere to be found. Depp's eyes flashed, but he took a deep breath, his voice measured. "Prove something," he said, his tone now carrying a quiet intensity. "Jimmy, I don't need to prove anything. I've been in this industry for 40 years. I've worked with Tim Burton, Oliver Stone, Gore Verbinski. I've created characters that people carry in their hearts. I'm still here because I believe in art, in storytelling, in connecting with audiences. If you think that's about relevance, then you don't understand what drives me." Fallon smirked, clearly thinking he'd hit a nerve. "Johnny, you know what I mean," he said, leaning back. "The whole tortured artist thing. It's cool, it's iconic, but it's also a bit safe. People love the Jack Sparrow shtick, but it's not exactly pushing boundaries anymore, is it?" The studio was deathly quiet now, the tension so thick it was suffocating. This wasn't banter. This was Fallon trying to diminish one of Hollywood's most versatile actors, and the audience wasn't having it. Depp's hands gripped the armrests of his chair, his knuckles whitening, but his voice remained steady. "Safe?" he said, a bitter laugh escaping his lips. "Jimmy, I've taken risks my whole career. I walked away from mainstream roles to do Edward Scissorhands. I fought for Pirates to be what it became. I poured my soul into Shadows of Truth because I believe in its message. If that's safe, then maybe you don't know what risk looks like. "Oh, spare me the lecture, Johnny," Fallon said, his voice sharp now, his eyes glinting with irritation. "This isn't Sundance. People tune in for fun, not to hear you philosophize about your craft. Maybe you've forgotten how to take a joke." It was a cruel jab, designed to make Depp look pretentious, out of touch. But Depp, who'd faced far worse than a talk show host's ego, wasn't intimidated. "Fun?" Depp said, his voice rising, the fire in his eyes unmistakable. "Jimmy, your audience came here to hear about my work, my life, maybe a few stories from the set of Pirates. They came to be entertained, to feel connected. But instead, you're throwing jabs, questioning my authenticity, trying to paint me as some washed-up eccentric who's chasing headlines. That's not fun. That's disrespectful, and I've had enough of it." The studio was electric with tension. The producers, likely watching from the control room, were probably in full panic mode, but Fallon doubled down, his ego unwilling to let him retreat. "Disrespectful?" he scoffed, his laugh forced and hollow. "Johnny, this is the Tonight Show. We poke fun, we keep it light. If you can't handle a little ribbing, maybe late-night TV isn't your thing anymore." The audience cringed, some shaking their heads. Telling Johnny Depp, a man who charmed hosts from Letterman to Kimmel, that he didn't belong on TV, was so arrogant it left the room stunned. That was the moment Depp had enough. His eyes burned with a fire that could have lit up a soundstage, and when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of a lifetime in the spotlight. "Can't handle it?" he repeated, leaning forward, his presence filling the stage. "Jimmy, I've been in this business since you were in high school. I've worked with directors who challenged me, studios who doubted me, tabloids who tore me apart. I've handled more ribbing than you can imagine. But what I won't handle is a host who invites me here just to sling insults and tear me down for a laugh." Fallon tried to interrupt, raising his hands in a mock surrender, but Depp held up a hand, his gesture commanding silence. "You've accused me of chasing relevance, of playing a caricature, of using my work to prove something," Depp continued, his voice steady but laced with steel. "You've spent this entire interview trying to reduce me to some quirky stereotype, some has-been who's out of touch. But let me tell you something, Jimmy. I've earned my place in this industry. I've earned it with every role, every risk, every story I've told. What have you earned by trying to make me look small?" The audience erupted, their applause shaking the studio, some chanting, "Johnny, Johnny," as if they were at a concert. Fallon's face flushed, but he tried to regain control. "Johnny, look, I'm just doing my job," he said, his voice weaker now, the bravado slipping. "This is comedy. You're taking it too personally." "Comedy?" Depp's voice was like a blade, precise and cutting. "Comedy brings people together. It finds humor and truth in shared moments, not in humiliating someone who trusted you enough to come on your show. What you're doing isn't comedy, Jimmy. It's cruelty dressed up as entertainment, and I've seen enough of that to know when to walk away." Fallon shifted uncomfortably, his carefully crafted TV persona cracking. "Okay, Johnny, let's reset," he said, forcing a smile that looked more like a grimace. "Tell us about Shadows of Truth. What's the big message? Let's give the audience what they want." But Depp wasn't playing along. "No, Jimmy, we're not resetting," he said, standing up slowly, his movements deliberate and dignified. "You don't get to insult my career, question my authenticity, attack my life, and then act like it never happened. You don't get to invite me here, try to tear me down, and expect me to smile for your cameras like nothing's wrong. That's not how respect works, and it's not how I work." The audience was on its feet, their cheers deafening, a wave of support that seemed to lift Depp even taller. Fallon's face paled, his hands fidgeting on his desk. "Johnny, come on, don't do this," he said, his voice tinged with panic. "Let's finish the interview. I didn't mean to offend you. Let's talk about the movie." Depp paused, looking at Fallon with a mix of pity and resolve. "That's the tragedy, Jimmy," he said, his voice softening but still commanding. "You didn't even realize how offensive you were being. You thought this was just your style, just another night of poking fun. But let me tell you something. Real hosts, great hosts, know their job is to make their guests shine. Johnny Carson, David Letterman, Graham Norton. They created moments of connection, celebrated their guests. didn't tear them down for a viral clip. He began removing his microphone, his movements slow and graceful, each gesture carrying the weight of a man who'd faced countless battles and emerged stronger. "Your audience deserved better tonight," he continued, his voice now tinged with genuine disappointment. "They came here to be entertained, to hear stories, to feel something. They came for a conversation, not a fight. Instead, they got a lesson in what happens when ego overshadows respect." The studio was silent except for the hum of the cameras, the audience hanging on Depp's every word. Fallon tried one last time to salvage the situation. "Johnny, please, sit back down," he said, his voice almost pleading. "I'm sorry if I came on too strong, it's just my style. Let's talk about your film, your music, whatever you want." Depp shook his head slowly, his eyes never leaving Fallon's. "It's too late for that, Jimmy," he said, "because now your audience has seen exactly who you are when you think you have power over someone. They've seen how you treat a guest when you think you can get away with it. And honestly, I don't think there's any coming back from that." He handed his microphone to a stunned stagehand who looked starstruck and shell-shocked in equal measure. Depp adjusted his fedora, his presence still commanding the room, and picked up a copy of the Shadows of Truth script from the desk. "You know what the real tragedy is, Jimmy?" he said, his voice now carrying a quiet sadness. "I came here excited to talk about my film, my life, my music. I came here ready to share stories about pirates, about working with Tim Burton, about what keeps me going after all these years. I've been doing this for decades, and I still love connecting with audiences, still love the chance to create. But you didn't want that. You wanted a fight, a moment, a clip to go viral, and that's not what I'm about." The audience was standing again, their applause a tidal wave of support, but Depp wasn't done. He took a step toward the exit, then turned back one final time, his eyes locking onto Fallon's. "Jimmy," he said, his voice carrying across the silent studio, "I hope you figure out what kind of host you want to be. Because right now, your audience deserves better than what they just witnessed. And so do your guests. They're not here to be your punchline. They're here to share something real. And if you can't see that, then maybe it's you who's lost your way." With that, Johnny Depp stormed off the Tonight Show stage, his head held high, his stride confident and unhurried, the weight of his words lingering in the air. The audience roared, their cheers following him into the wings, a testament to the respect he commanded. Fallon sat behind his desk, speechless, his usual infectious laugh replaced by a stunned silence. The cameras kept rolling, capturing his flushed face, the uneasy silence from the roots, and the murmurs of an audience still processing what they'd just seen. Backstage, the energy was chaotic. Crew members whispered frantically, some shaking their heads, others nodding in awe. The audience, as they exited the studio, were already on their phones, posting clips and reactions to X, where the moment was trending within minutes. "Johnny Depp just owned Jimmy Fallon," one post declared, racking up thousands of likes. Another read, "That was the most epic walk-off I've ever seen. Johnny's a legend." The internet exploded with memes, hot takes, and debates about who was right, but one thing was clear: Depp had left an indelible mark. What made Depp's response so powerful wasn't that he lost his temper or matched Fallon's jabs with venom. It was that he maintained his dignity, his grace, while refusing to tolerate disrespect. He didn't resort to cheap shots or theatrics. Instead, he laid bare the difference between entertainment and ego, between humor and harm, with the precision of an artist who'd spent a lifetime mastering his craft. In the days that followed, the fallout was seismic. Clips of the interview dominated social media, with commentators praising Depp's poise and criticizing Fallon's approach. "Johnny Depp just reminded us what true class looks like," one article proclaimed. Another headline read, "Depp's Tonight Show walk-off, a lesson in knowing your worth." Some fans demanded an apology from Fallon, while others defended him, arguing he was just being playful. But the consensus was undeniable. Depp had won the night, not by fighting dirty, but by standing up for himself with a quiet strength that resonated far beyond the studio. Fallon tried to address the moment in his next monologue, cracking nervous jokes about surviving Captain Jack and promising to keep the rum flowing next time. But the humor fell flat, and the audience could sense his unease. The incident had shifted something, not just for Fallon, but for how people viewed late-night TV. It sparked conversations about the role of hosts, the line between comedy and cruelty, and what it means to treat a guest with respect. For Depp, the walk-off wasn't about headlines or drama. It was about principle. He'd spent his career defying expectations, creating unforgettable characters, and weathering storms that would have broken others. From his breakout role in A Nightmare on Elm Street to his Oscar-nominated performances, from Pirates to Shadows of Truth, Depp had always lived authentically, pouring his soul into his art. And on that stage, facing a host who tried to diminish him, he showed the world what it means to know your worth and refuse to settle for less. So what do you think? Was Johnny Depp right to storm off Jimmy Fallon's show? Or should he have stayed to finish the interview? Did he handle the argument with the grace of a true icon? Or was it an overreaction to a host's playful jabs? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and let's keep this conversation going. Make sure to subscribe for more stories about Hollywood's biggest stars standing their ground, because moments like this remind us why some names, like Johnny Depp's, will always shine brighter than the rest. This is one night we'll be talking about for years to come.